All right, today we're going to talk about one of the worst man-made catastrophes in all of human history. It's an incredible story full of human error, unbelievable sacrifice, and a warning that honestly still echoes today. So let's get into it. The final countdown to the Chernobyl disaster.
So let's set the scene. It's 1:23 in the morning, April 26, 1986. We're in the dead of night at a nuclear power plant deep inside the Soviet Union, and something is about to go catastrophically wrong.
Now you might be thinking, was it an earthquake? Nope, the ground wasn't shaking. There was no warning from Mother Nature at all. The plant itself was completely stable.
Okay, so if it wasn't a natural disaster, was it a bomb? An attack? No way. This wasn't an act of war. The real threat, well, it came from the inside. Instead, there was just this blinding flash of light. In a single instant, a nuclear reactor explodes. And with it, it completely changes our understanding of nuclear power and kicks off a disaster that would impact millions of people for generations.
So, how on earth did this happen? Well, believe it or not, this whole nightmare didn't start with some evil plan or an attack. It all started with something that was supposed to be completely routine, a safety test. And the idea behind the test was, pretty straightforward. It was actually a good question. The engineers just wanted to know, if the plant lost all its external power, could the reactor's turbines, while they were spinning down, generate enough juice to keep the cooling pumps running for a minute or so? It's a critical safety feature, right?
But here's where it all goes wrong. It's like a perfect storm of bad decisions. First, the test gets delayed, so it gets pushed onto the night shift, a crew that was totally unprepared for this specific procedure. Then, to even run the test, they had to disable a bunch of the automatic safety systems. Yep, you heard that right. And then, the reactor's power level dropped way too low, almost stalling it. So to get the power back up, they did something you should never, ever do. They pulled out way too many of the control rods. Think of these rods as the brakes for the nuclear reaction. They basically took their foot off the brake on a runaway train. The reactor was now a ticking time bomb.
So the reactor is in this incredibly dangerous, unstable state. And what do the operators do? They press on with the test. What happens next? It all goes down in just a few heart-stopping seconds. Okay, look at this timeline. At 1:23 and 4 seconds in the morning, they start the test. Within seconds, literally seconds, the power starts surging like crazy. The operators panic, and they slam the emergency shutdown button. But, and this is the craziest part, because of a fatal design flaw nobody really knew about, hitting that button actually made things worse. For a split second, it supercharged the reaction, and just 41 seconds after the whole thing started, boom, 2 massive explosions just ripped the entire reactor building to shreds.
And when I say massive, I mean it. To give you an idea of the power we're talking about, the first explosion blew the reactor's lid, a 1,000-ton slab of steel and concrete, clean off the building, just launched it into the air.
And just like that, the core was open to the sky. It was literally burning like the heart of a volcano, just spewing a toxic, invisible plume of radiation straight up into the atmosphere. And the guys in the control room, they had no idea. They thought the reactor was still intact. They couldn't even comprehend what had just happened.
So who are the first people to show up? The firefighters. Of course. They get a call about a fire at the power plant, and they do what heroes do. They race right into the heart of it. But this wasn't a normal fire. They were walking into a battle against an enemy they couldn't even see.
Here's the truly heartbreaking part. Nobody told them about the radiation. Think about that. They were sent to put out a fire, but they had no idea they were walking through lethal doses of radiation. They were picking up pieces of radioactive graphite with their bare hands, completely clueless that an invisible poison was destroying them from the inside out. How do you fight something you don't even know exists?
And this quote from one of those firefighters, it just says everything, doesn't it? We didn't know we were already dead. In those first few minutes of bravery, they had absorbed fatal doses. Many of them would die in the most horrible ways over the next few weeks.
So while these firefighters were unknowingly sacrificing their lives, what was the official response from the Soviet government? Silence. A total, deafening silence. It's a story of a devastating lie and, as we'll see, an almost unbelievable sacrifice that prevented an even bigger one.
This really shows you the disconnect between the official story and the horrifying reality. For 36 hours, a day and a half, the government said nothing, while kids were outside playing in the streets of the nearby city, Pripyat, literally breathing in radioactive particles.
And when they finally ordered an evacuation, they told people to pack for 3 days. Just 3 days. They never saw their homes again.
And as absolutely awful as all of this sounds, believe it or not, it could have been so much worse. A second, even bigger catastrophe was ticking away right underneath the burning reactor.
So here was the nightmare scenario. The molten core, this radioactive lava, was melting through the concrete floor. Right below it were massive pools of water used by the fire department. If that molten core touched the water, it would have caused a steam explosion so powerful, it would have vaporized the entire plant and shot even more radiation into the jet stream, contaminating most of Europe. We're talking about making it uninhabitable for hundreds of years.
So how do you stop that? It came down to 3 men. Just 3. 3 volunteers who suited up and went on what everyone knew was a suicide mission. They had to go down into the flooded, pitch-black basement of the reactor, find the right valves, and drain that water before the core could reach it. And somehow, they did it. Those 3 men saved millions of lives.
Now, even though they prevented that second apocalyptic explosion, the fallout from the first one was, well, it was permanent. The consequences were just too big to contain, casting a shadow that is still with us today. Just look at the aftermath. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of people, the cleanup workers, the civilians, all exposed to dangerous radiation. Entire regions of land in Ukraine and Belarus had to be abandoned, forever. We saw a huge spike in cancer rates. A massive concrete and steel shell, a sarcophagus, had to be built over the reactor just to try and contain it. And Pripyat, it's still there, an empty ghost city, frozen in 1986.
So when we talk about Chernobyl today, it's about more than just a single accident, right? It's become this global symbol. It represents the catastrophic cost of human error, what happens when governments choose secrecy over safety, and, just a dangerous level of arrogance about the technology we create.
Really, it was a wake-up call for the entire planet. A brutal, terrifying reminder that some technologies, especially something as powerful as nuclear energy, they demand total honesty, they demand absolute discipline, and they demand a little humility. The margin for error is 0.
Because at the end of the day, when a mistake of this magnitude is made, you can't take it back. There's no hitting the undo button. All that's left are the consequences. And those consequences, well, they're paid for by generations.